Hey Sunday drivers, today we're going to the Powder Valley Nature Center. So we're driving out on I-44. And there's a sign in Kirkwood for the Powder Valley. What does that sound like to you? As a kid, I always thought it sounded like a ski resort or something, but I was confused. There's no mountains around here. Well, it turns out that there isn't a whole lot of white powder, but there's lots of gunpowder in its history. So let's drive by some of that history, going all the way back to the Civil War. The Confederate forces had their sights set on St. Louis, and they were marching up through Arkansas and Missouri and collecting a lot of the men that had deserted the war at once they got out here to the front. And by the time they got to the Missouri border, they had collected about 12,000 of these guys. But at this point, they were wearing more or less tattered clothes. Some of them didn't even have shoes, and only 75% of them had their guns. And they were all different shapes and sizes and calibers. So arming and equipping these guys for a successful attack on St. Louis would have been a really tough thing. But they did it anyway. They continued marching forward, and they ended up clashing with Union forces in Pilot Knob. Now, the Battle of Pilot Knob was one of the bloodiest battles in the entire Civil War. Like 1,000 people died in a single day. It was pretty terrible. And it was a terrible loss for the South. Sterling Price, who was commanding the forces at that point, realized that an attack on St. Louis would be suicide. And so he set his sights not on St. Louis, but on Jefferson City, thinking that if they could take the capital, then they could come on and take St. Louis and Jefferson Barracks. While the Union forces in St. Louis never quite got that memo. I don't know why. But they prepared for a 10,000-man army to come and fight them in St. Louis, and they took as much black powder and gunpowder and explosives as they could, and they put it under all the bridges and inside the caves along the Merrimack River. And their intent was that once this army did come and show up, they were going to blow it all up, making it that much harder to get into St. Louis County. Like I said, they never actually went to St. Louis. They went to Jefferson City instead, and they ended up suffering another loss in Jefferson City, and about a month later, the whole Western Front ended up surrendering. Let's jump forward about 50 years to World War I.
Let's go to a picnic.
You want to go to a picnic? Well, we're going to do that. I'm telling them about it right now.
Let's go to a picnic table.
Let's go to a picnic table. Let's jump forward about 50 years to World War I. DuPont Powder Company is producing black powder and gunpowder for the war effort in the valley here in Kirkwood. And they're storing it there. Now, it's interesting that it's entirely likely that the black powder that was used under the bridges and the caves during the Civil War was also produced by DuPont. They worked really hard to source all of the materials they needed from Europe and South America to produce the black powder needed for the Union forces. DuPont was also concerned with selling guns during peace times, and so in the Mississippi and Ohio river valleys, when there were these massive floods, he mobilized a group of local sportsmen to go and provide food and shelter for the people, and then also the animals that were being run out of their land because of these rising waters. I love when that sort of thing happens. When the free market works together to do stuff like this, to do charity work. You don't hear about that kind of stuff all the time. For whatever reason, DuPont eventually left the valley, has sold it to a couple, and then that couple eventually sold it to another couple, and it was Howard and Julie Sell, I believe their names were. And they were the ones that were actually credited with calling this valley the Powder Valley. I'm sure it's because they knew the story of the Civil War, and they knew that DuPont Powder Company had been there. Now it's DuPont Chemical, by the way. And they also had found a sign there nailed to a tree that said DuPont Powder Company. So I think that's a perfectly fitting name for it. Well, now, not DuPont, it's now the Powder Valley Nature Center. And it's not all that explosive of a place. It's got the Nature Center there with all sorts of things for little minds to wrap their heads around. And then it's got some hikes.
Big ones, and these are big.
Those are big Frisbees. Clarence is excited about the Frisbees. It's also got some hikes that are just tough enough for the toddlers, but easy enough for us. So we're about to get ready to go hiking. We're almost there. We're excited. We're on Route 66 getting there. But I want to hear from you. Where are you guys driving on Sunday? Leave your answer in the comments and be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss anything outside our windows. Until next time, thanks for driving with us.
Moses supposes, so's are roses. Moses supposes his nose to be Moses. Da 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 da. Moses. Da 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 da. Moses. Da 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 da.
We're going on the hike in the woods. Yes, yes.